So has your child ever lied, stolen, done something that made you feel really embarrassed as a parent? Also, like really maybe even scared? Maybe they shoplifted, maybe they broke your trust, or maybe they even broke trust with a family friend. Maybe they told a story that wasn't true. In those moments, like it is really natural for us as parents to try to want it to just go away, right? But also sometimes we're trying to find the reason, right? Because we don't know what to do about it. And so we're trying to, well, they were with kids that I didn't like, or those friends are a bad influence, or maybe we point at the school or another family. So the problem is that when we pass the blame, our child misses out on really important lessons of accountability. I want to talk about that today. So blame doesn't work because when we shift the focus away from our child and what they did, they don't really have to face what they did, right? Like when we're even, and I've heard countless parents like say it out loud, well, they learned this at school, or even with siblings, like the younger child does something and it's like, well, this would have never happened, but their sister did this, and so they learned it from there. And that's not what's important right now. That's not what we're dealing with, right? Like that's not what we're doing. Instead of teaching responsibility and honesty and integrity, they are learning avoidance. They are learning to shift. And they learn that if they wait long enough, or if they point the finger, that the heat's going to kind of get taken off of them, and they kind of learn our dance with it, right? And we get all up in arms because it feels so, I think it just feels so out of control sometimes what our kids are doing, that we actually are grabbing for control from places where we don't have any at all. So I just want to encourage you as a parent that you have all the power, that you still hold all the keys here. But when you shift it to somebody else's kid, or being even another child in your family, sometimes as a child that doesn't even live there anymore, but it's not just affecting the behavior in the moment, it's affecting you and your thoughts and what you're going to do about it. And it affects the trust, because you rescuing your child or explaining it away or being mad about something outside of this situation that's happening is helping the child to like realize that you can't handle it, right? Like they're not getting the message that, hey, I can handle hard things. And we want our children to know, like, I can own my actions and I can fix them. And so you have to kind of model that, like, and you might have to practice that, right? Like being a little bit less shocked about it and more like, okay, so now what are we going to do about it? And I think that helps a lot to, as a parent, to be thinking like, okay, and what are we going to do? And so in the long term, this kind of shifting the blame and moving things different directions and kind of, not knowing how to deal with the exact situation that's happening, in the long term, it really weakens our relationship with our kids, because kids don't grow from blame. They grow from the accountability. They also, it's not going to, and we'll talk about this more, but they're not going to necessarily grow because of the punishment that you give them, especially the punishment that you give them in the moment. Like, who hasn't gotten frustrated and be like, that's it, you're grounded for forever or for a month or whatever. Like, we say these things in the heat of the moment that haven't been thought out and haven't been and are not well executed. And so we're not really helping our kids to grow through these different challenges. So what do I mean by accountability? So simply and clearly, if your child steals from the store, then we take them back and we return the item. We have them apologize. If they lie, you point out the truth and you give them a chance to correct it. I have done a lot of videos on lying, and I'll just tell you, like, if you know that your child is going to tell you a different story than what you know the truth to be, then present with the truth. Like, this also builds trust when we are solid and we're saying, like, this is what I know happened, or this is what the teacher told me happened. I would like to hear your side of it. We're not setting them up then to lie. We're just letting them tell what happened in the way that they want to tell it. We're not also, like, part of why kids will like lie and paint the picture in a different way is because we've fed into it. Like we think like they're gonna, I had a kid that just recently was like, they want to give their reasons for why they did what they did. Their reasons why they shoplifted, or their reasons why they did this thing. It's like the reasons right now, that doesn't matter, but they learn through us, like the questions that we ask and the being upset about the stuff, and then it becoming more emotional for us. Like, well, they're not really a bad kid, all this kind of like stuff that we do. It's this friend, they've learned that from us a lot of times, and maybe in society as well. Like this is kind of how we're leaning towards dealing stuff, but we can be different. We can do it differently. So it's very different than punishment. Accountability is different than punishment. Punishment is extra, right? Like taking everything away, grounding them for weeks, yelling at them to scare them, all of that. Like, maybe that punishment makes them feel bad. Maybe they don't like in the moment. But if their mindset is that they know how to kind of wiggle around and out of this, and they never really have to take accountability and to make repairs and to rebuild in that process, or the punishment is just, it's really coming from a place of what we're feeling about it. And I want to really warn you about that, because it's just so ineffective in the long term of what we're really trying to teach. Punishment, it can sometimes make them feel bad in the moment, and sometimes they will feel bad enough to try to make a repair. Like they might apologize or they might write a letter, but we need the actual things to do that are going to teach the skills that they're missing. I look at these are opportunities when our kids have these big moments where they really mess up, or maybe they've been kind of on the edge of getting in trouble, but we haven't really caught them, or we've caught them, but it's been very minimal, so we do minimal things. Like we keep doing sometimes the same things over and over. It's like, okay, well, you're grounded for a week, or this, whatever that means for you. But we're not really getting to the crux of the issue. And then they do something big that's like, okay, now we know all the things that are happening, and now we're going to have to build and rebuild and turn things around and all of that. So you can't punish a child. This is the truth. You cannot punish a child into honesty or self-control. That it just doesn't work. Fear isn't going to build trust, and fear doesn't build the skills. So do I wish that kids at least had some fear of like what is going to happen? Like, yes, but only in understanding cause and effect, right? Like if I drive too fast, I could lose control of my vehicle, right? And that's so different than like, there's no police around, so I can speed because I'm not afraid of getting a ticket right now. Like it's such a different mindset. We really want to look at the mindset that your kids have and the character. So clear consequences paired with teaching, that's what helps build accountability. That's what helps to build trust. We tell our kids, like, especially when they mess up, I can't trust you now. And you've ruined the trust. You've broken the trust, right? But do we know how? So what would it take for your child to rebuild trust with you? That's a really good question to ask yourself. What would it take for your child to rebuild trust with you? Because if you don't know what that would take, and sometimes this is true. I've asked this question of adults about their other relationships. Like, what would it take for that person to rebuild trust with you? What does that look like? Well, they know what they need to do, right? It's like, no, they don't know. We have to look at that. And you may not know actually what it takes to rebuild trust. And that's where it's really good if you talk to an expert like myself in coaching and parenting, because I can give you a ton of skills and lay it out for you, the things that you do to build trust and connection in your family, because they go hand in hand, and so does your child being compliant. Trust and obey kind of hand together. You are going to also, in that time period, so let's say that was your decision, you grounded them for 30 days. You're going to be spending that 30 days teaching the missing skills. If you ground them and then there's no guarantees that they're not still doing the same behavior when you're not there. You have to really be intentional about addressing the behavior and also what skills do they need to learn, and what are we going to be working on during these 30 days. So if it's impulse control, then they're going to have to practice pausing before they act. Maybe we're going to have to do some role playing. Maybe we're going to have to do, stop, think, choose. Maybe we're going to have to break it down to really small elements. Maybe we're going to have them practice, waiting for things. With younger kids, I have them wait sometimes, like, just different things. Like older kids, it's still important to like let's write out the pros and cons. Let's think through a situation. Maybe we need to practice what that would look like if you were going to make a big decision about what to do. How would you decide? Like, work on those skills. That's all family time exercise, and it works so well when we work on that together. It's honesty, right? We're creating safe spaces where they can tell the truth without the fear of overreaction. Sometimes after they've gotten in trouble, we want them to confess to all the trouble, right? Like all the things, or we find out there's more. And I think it's valid to ask yourself, like, why do I need to know the why behind it, or if there's more? It's like, we're going to deal with this right here. And it doesn't matter what anybody else's family is doing about it, what the other kids, all of the little pieces of it. That's not what we're not on a mission to get the whole story. We're dealing with what we know, and we're working on helping them. If they need to know how to do repairs, how to repair relationships, and usually, especially when these things are happening in the family, where they're sneaking around and they mostly are at home, or they're being disrespectful, all these different things that drive us crazy, that make us frustrated. They need to know how to build strong relationships, and it starts at home. So you can go back to the basics of building that connection, giving good responses. Like, it seems so elementary when I'm telling parents, like, they're with their teenagers, especially, like, oh, they're not going to like that. It's like, I don't care if they like it or not. We got to do what's good for their brain. We got to help them develop the executive functioning skills so that this behavior doesn't keep going. And it's not going to happen by just scaring them, because if they had the forethought or the hindsight to be able to make better decisions, I think they would. For the most part, most of the kids I work with, they would make better decisions if they could. Our misunderstanding is that we think that they can, and they have before, so they can. I think that they've gotten used to maneuvering through our systems, and we need to change how we do that, because skills are learned through repetitive interactions and support, and not through shame, not through guilt. And your child needs practice. I don't care how old they are. They need practice many, many times before it sticks. And if they keep doing the same thing over and over, and we keep doing the same thing in response over and over, and we're expecting it to change, who's responsible for that, right? So the key really is to stay calm, to be clear and direct. I don't want you to minimize what happened, but I don't want you to overreact either. Whatever happened, like, we are going to deal with it, and we are going to learn from it. If they've broken the law outside of your home, then it can be part of your consequences, that you are going to call the police, that they are going to have some accountability there as well. Because we have to have a line. Like, how far do you want them to push the line with the law? Do you want them to be like, it's okay, my mom and dad will handle this for me, right? Like, just, mistakes are for learning, not for hiding. Like, that's a big piece of what we do as humans that makes things worse, right? We don't come clean, and then we hide. And then we hide things in our family because we don't want them to have too many consequences, or we don't want them to ruin their lives, or, whatever we think that is going to be. And I can just tell you that there's never too late to turn it around. But the things that your kids are doing and the things that are happening, you need to deal with right now as they're happening, and we need to move forward. And yes, I do believe if we can do that in the family, so much better than having to send our kids somewhere else to try to learn these lessons, because they're going to come back and they're going to still need to know how to carry through with things at your house. And if you have a habit of kind of shifting the blame and kind of moving things and letting your kids manipulate the consequences or by their behaviors, well, I was good for 2 weeks. Can we cut this early or whatever it is, or, something that whatever it is that you set up that you can't follow through with, they're going to keep doing that, whether they go away for treatment or they come home. So really look at those places where you can look at those mistakes as okay, there's still some things we need to learn here. There's still some things that are going to get better. And the other thing I just want to tell you is is it exhausting? Yes. When your kids are constantly pulling at this, at the leash, so to speak, it's exhausting, right? And you're having to pull them back and having to pull them back. It's so much less so when I can help you to set up the boundaries, right? And help you to know exactly what you're going to do in those moments. What's exhausting is having an hour-long lecture / yelling match, crying, tantrum from a 15-year-old that knows how to negotiate, to sell ice to Eskimos, that's exhausting. But when you're very clear and direct and you're it's written down, this is what we said that we were going to do if you did this, and this falls in line with this consequence, it's so much easier. And when they want to, negotiate all that, it's nope, we still got some things to work on. We're not ready to negotiate yet. At the end of the day, accountability is about trust. When your child sees that you deal with the problem directly, that you give clear consequences, and then help them to do better next time, they're going to feel safe and responsible. So here's your takeaway. Don't pass the blame. Don't rely on punishment alone. Deal with what's in front of you and then work on building the skills that your child is missing. And that's how we raise kids who are going to be honest and trustworthy and capable of healthy relationships.